My name is Virginia Malmquist, and I live in the county south of Everson. Jeannie made a great presentation, and I really appreciated how articulate she was, with one profound exception. She threw up a slide about the artistic rendition of what it will look like and said, here's where the coal will be, here's where the births will be. And I'd like to ask you if you could commit to not only talking but thinking in a conditional form instead of the future tense.
Thank you for your comment.
It's not a comment. I'm asking if they can commit to it.
Can I respond to that, Ms. Jean?
Hi, Jean.
Thank you for the input. I think that's well stated.
And I'd like for all of you to commit to thinking in the conditional form. Thinking in a future tense is predisposing of your choice.
Comment noted. Thank you. Scott?
Hi, my name's Paula Rotundi. I live in Birch Bay. And does the contractor only assess existing information that's collected during scoping, or does the contractor actually do its own original analysis and research to answer questions brought up during scoping?
The first thing that we'll have the contractor do is take an inventory of all of the known information and evaluate that. If there's any data gaps, then they can go and do their own studies and obtain their own information. So it depends on the data gaps and the peer review of the information, if it's adequate or not, or if the methodology was correct and so forth.
Okay, thanks.
I'm Bob Agater. I live in Whatcom County. I deeply regret that you inadequately explained to this audience the reasons and the purposes of Appearance for Fairness. I hope you'll put a document on your website that will explain that so that they can understand. You're leaving a lot of people here very frustrated. This site that's under consideration for some future action, this is the third project that's been proposed. Many of us remember the Chicago Iron project, and we remember the first attempt at an export boat facility there. In that project in the 1990s, there were to be about 7 studies of the near shore and the aquatic ecology. Those studies, to the best of my knowledge, have neither been started nor completed nor submitted. There's a lot. I've read the scope of those projects. They're significant. They ought to be available before scoping. Do you think there is a way that we can get the information that would be available from those projects before the draft EIS is published?
Question on background information that would be brought into the draft EIS. You're talking about prior sites that were proposed at Cherry Point.
No, I'm talking about this site, and I'm talking about the portion of this proposal that is the pier and the wheat or the edible goods, bulk commodities portion of the site.
And you're asking whether past studies would be considered in the record analysis.
These are not past studies. These are legitimate studies that the proponent agreed to at that time that have incredible significance to the viability, the questionable viability of this project.
Yeah, it sounds like you're asking about a settlement agreement that was entered into, I believe, back in, I'm not even going to say what year, I'm not sure, I wasn't involved with the settlement agreement, but a number of studies are required through the settlement agreement, same proponent. Yes, that is still a viable settlement agreement. The proponent is still bound by the terms of the agreement, and the studies need to be completed.
Okay, I think that answers your question. All right, go ahead, let him clarify.
Okay, I'm unfamiliar with the details of the settlement agreement because they're confidential. We're not allowed to see those.
They're
I
on
am aware.
Whatcom County's website.
I am aware of the studies which were revealed. My question is, that's important information. It ought to be available to the people who are doing the scoping. At least, it ought to be available before they do the significant writing of the draft EIS. Is that possible? Is that possible?
Again, I'm not entirely clear what studies you're talking about. If you're talking about studies that the proponent itself, the current proponent, has agreed to do, then those are studies that are included in a settlement agreement that is posted on Whatcom County's website. And yes, a lot of those things that that settlement agreement covered would be studies that would otherwise be required through the SEPA-NEPA process. So yes, that analysis is going to need to be done before there's a draft EIS that's issued. Whether it's done through the settlement agreement or whether it's done through the SEPA-NEPA process, those impacts would need to be considered.
Okay, thank you. Okay, go ahead, Scott.
Hi, my name's Colleen Curtis. I'm in Bellingham. I'd understood that SSA has already been given extensions on this project, and I'm curious why it wasn't just thrown out, and wouldn't it have been with other proposals or projects or people? Why are they given extension after extension? It should be thrown out.
Sure. So I'll try to answer that. In the summer of 2011, last summer, they applied for permits associated with the action. And the county, if you remember, determined that, one, they needed a new shoreline substantial permit, which was applied for yesterday. And two, that the major project permit that they applied for wasn't complete, and they needed to provide additional information. So yesterday's submittal was their response to that letter that the county sent out in last summer. So there were 2 extensions to a 90-day time frame requesting that additional information. If you look at the Whatcom County Code, it's 2.33. I don't want to bore you with code citations, but it indicates that those extensions shall be granted if the applicant requests for them. So there was 2 90-day additional time frame extensions which lapsed yesterday, and they applied for the permits with the additional shoreline substantial permit, the new one, not the revision of the old one, and the information needed for the major project permit. So the next step is for the county to review that information, make sure it's a complete application, and then move forward through the time frames and the steps.